Hello everyone, my name is Ev, or you can call me Nightingale, either way works. Today I wanted to talk about my deck, Prossh, Skyraider of Kher. This is probably my most used deck I've ever owned, and I find the play patterns to be very fun and enjoyable, and I find that it leads to quick games typically. And yeah, let's just hop right into talking about what I like about it. So Prossh here is a 6 mana Jund commander who is a 5/5 flyer, and he has whenever you cast Prossh, you get to make X01 red kobolds, where X is the amount of mana you spent to cast on Prossh. Notably, this scales every time you cast him with commander attacks. So the first time you'll make 6 kobolds, the second time you'll make 8, etc. And the other really cool thing about Prossh is Prossh has a sack outlet built into him. So you can sacrifice another creature, and then Prossh gains +1/+0. And this really trips people up a lot of time, I've noticed. So if I can just paint the picture for you, you cast Prossh here on turn 6, and then on turn 7, you can swing with Prossh, and then Prossh can sacrifice all the kobolds, and then you have an 11/5 that's flying at them. So he turns out to be a lot of damage, but that's not even what the deck's really focused on. The focus of this deck is an aristocrat sack deck. So that is what this category of burn cards are. These are cards that when we sacrifice stuff, it'll ping the whole table for a certain amount of damage. A lot of the better ones are the ones that hit the whole table, but there are exceptions in this deck. And I'm not even going to say this is the best way to build it. I'm just saying this is the way I've decided to build it. So let's talk about first Marionette Apprentice. Marionette Apprentice and Zulaport Cutthroat, Bastion of Remembrance. These are all effectively the same card. Same with Funeral Room. These are all effectively the same card. They say whenever a creature dies, you get to have everyone else lose 1 life. Marionette Apprentice gets to make a token when she enters. Zulaport Cutthroat gains you life. Bastion gains you life and makes a token, and is an enchantment, so it's pretty hard to remove. And same with Funeral Room. Funeral Room has a nice upside that at the late game you get to recur all of your creatures that are in the graveyard, and you'll see that recursion is an important part. And other than that, we have effects like Descent into Avernus that will deal a lot of damage to our opponents and make us a bunch of treasures, and that's why I put it in this burn section. This probably shouldn't be in this section. This is more of a removal piece. However, this thing gets real big. I love Gluttonous Hellkite. Every time you cast it, everyone's sacking a creature and you put 8 counters on him. And then he's just super strong. Mayhem Devil is in here, same with Marionette Apprentice because he hits artifacts as well. And same with Nadir's Nightblade. So you can deal a lot of damage. And notably, Mayhem Devil's a global effect. So if your opponent sacks a treasure, you get a Mayhem Devil trigger, which makes him a pretty strong effect to just have. Here's and then instead of just having all effects that hit the whole table or global, we have some Blood Artist effects. Though notably Blood Artist isn't in here, but it probably could. It probably could go in here. Sephiroth is insane. He's card advantage, and he gets to make an emblem when you get to trigger him. He's a really good card, and he also gains you life. He's probably one of the better Blood Artist effects that exists. Caesarean Voidborn is the same as a Blood Artist, except it also triggers on artifacts, aka our treasures, which we make a good few of. Mirkwood Bats and Purphoros here are probably some of our better effects, though, because they'll deal 2 damage to each opponent instead of 1 damage, which, if you play Mirkwood Bats on turn 5-ish, and then you play Prossh on turn 6, you can immediately sack all of your stuff, and then everyone loses 12 life. It's very notable every time it happens. Poison Tip Archer is probably my favorite one of these effects, though, because whenever any creature dies, including our opponent's creatures, each opponent loses a life. So if you have a board wipe and there's like 20 creatures on the board, each of your opponents will lose 20 life. It also helps that you reach Death Toucher, which means you can just stop a big flying threat and just put him in front of it. And you have enough drain effects and enough recursion in here in order that it doesn't really matter all that much. I love him. Like I said, Purphoros deals 2 damage when anything enters, and you can also pump your board. I have never activated that effect, to be completely honest with you. But it is a thing that you can do, I suppose. Vein Ripper is really cool as well. He's a blood artist, but he's like 2 blood artists because your target opponent will lose 2 life and you'll gain 2 life. I'm not quite sure how I feel about Vien Ripper here with how expensive it is, but I'm experimenting with it currently. So let's move on to our draw section now. So we have a Spy Master's Vault because we get to connive a lot because a lot of our creatures die a lot, and it's an untapped land most of the time. This is just a really nice inclusion, I would like to think, and it's pretty cheap, $1.17. Not bad. Not that I worry about budget too much because we play on cockatrice with my friend group, but if it does matter, this is a pretty budget include for any aristocrat deck, I think. We have Faithless Looting, just draw, grab the prize, just draw, throw of possibility is just draw. Then we have Morbid Opportunist, so every time a creature dies, we draw a card each turn, and this is pretty good card advantage. This draws you 4 cards per turn cycle, pretty decent for 3 mana. We have Sephiroth, which when he ever enters or attacks, you can sack a creature and draw a card. Pretty nice. He's also a nice way to just sack stuff, because sometimes you'll find that you want to sacrifice Prossh and you're having a hard time. So, he's pretty nice for that. Valakut Awakening, it's a nice land that if you don't need a land, you get to wheel, and it's pretty nice. Bone Devourer is a really cool card because whenever you sacrifice a bunch of stuff, let's say you sack all 6 kobolds, you put 6 counters on him, so he's an 8/8, and then you just have an 8/8 until he dies, and when he dies, you'll draw a bunch of cards. He's awesome. Smothering Abomination, Corvald, and Moldavine Reclamation, all pretty much the same card. Whenever anything dies, you'll draw cards. Pretty nice stuff. And then we have a Bolus of Citadel, which you could very easily take out. This is just a bracket 3 deck, and I enjoy this card a lot. It's by no means necessary. However, it can be used to sack Prossh if that ever matters, but I find if you're using that second ability, you probably have won already. And Fekin Greenshell is probably one of my favorites because you play him on turn 5 and then you play Prossh on turn 6. Since all of your kobolds have bigger butts than their power, you get 6 of his triggers, which makes him for insane draw advantage or insane ramp because he'll just put lands on the battlefield. And then he also gives everything +2/+2. So if you don't even want to sack your kobolds, you can instead swing with them. This is an awesome card from Boomborough, and I don't see it very often. So, moving on, we need a lot of ramp in this deck because this deck is expensive. A lot of the core plan of the deck is killing Prossh and then recasting Prossh to sack his stuff. So, how are we going to get there? First, Curse of Opulence. We get to make tokens that we get to sacrifice, which trigger our artifact suite. We have a Crowded Crypt, which is a mana rock, but then we get to sack it late game to make a bunch of 2/2 zombies. Descent into Avernus, which makes everyone treasures, but it's really cool because he does damage and everything. Every time you play Descent into Avernus, even if it doesn't help you, the game's quick and the game's fun. Everyone in my pod loves this card so much, and I just can't help but agree. And then we have a Horizon Explorer, which is a new card from Edge of Eternities. Lands enter untapped, and then whenever you attack a player, you get to make a lander token. So you get to make 3 of these per turn, and you can pay 2, sack them, get a land. Which, it seems expensive, I think, but for a deck like this that is constantly needing mana, this is pretty nice advantage. We have Mahadi, of course, because, you're killing a lot of things, you're going to make a lot of treasures. He's pretty nice. We have a Primal Growth, which has a kicker cost where you sack a creature, and then you can get 2 basic lands for 3 mana. And I just think it's pretty decent when you want to sack your creatures anyways. Encroaching Dragonstorm, Prossh is in fact a dragon, so you get to recast this over and over. He's really, really nice. I like that card. Evan here is a treasure maker, and you're going to need a lot of them. Because, once again, we need to play Prossh over and over. Jolene makes a bunch of treasures. I'm going to skip over Pitiless Plunderer because I'll talk about him later. Rakdos is a newer inclusion that I just found, but I find him to be really insane with Prossh because he almost always pays for your non-Jund mana whenever you are casting Prossh. He's just really cool, and it's incredibly easy to pay his price. Also, he's a 6/6 for 4 mana and a Flying Trampler. He just does damage. He's so cool. I love this card, and I kind of want to build it by itself. Ruthless Technomancer makes treasures, and then we can sack treasures to recur creatures. Uh, Beladros Witherbloom makes a bunch of tokens, and you can pay 10 life and untap all of your lands. And he's just super cool. And then Blood Money, which could be perhaps could be traded for other board wipes, but I really like this one because it makes you treasures, so you end up paying for your own board wipe most of the time. So this is a really neat card, and I think it should be run more. It's 42 cents. Um, so Pitiless Plunder, the reason I didn't want to talk about him yet is because he's part of my combo piece. I don't typically go for the combo very much, but I find sometimes it's necessary if you ever want to stop certain types of decks or if it's just a really long, drawn out game and you're not being able to do the damage you want to do. But he goes infinite with Prossh and any token doubler, and the one in this deck is a Chatterfang. So, but whenever a creature dies, you get to make a treasure. Notably, uh, Prossh costs 6 mana, and he's a 7th creature because it's Prossh plus 6 kobolds. So if you sack all of those, you get 8. You get 7 treasures, and you need 8 mana total to cast Prossh again. So typically, if a Pitiless Plunder stays out and you have a ping and a sack outlet, you typically can just win with Pitiless Plunder. He's probably the best card in this deck. Now, things are going to die on our board, and we want ways to bring them back. So, my favorite recursion card in the entire game is Dread Return. You get to just return creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then if it's in your graveyard, you get to do it again by sacking creatures. Oh wow, you get to sack creatures. It's awesome. Malaga Rebirth, it's an okay card. It's in here because it's a land on the other side, and it can protect something. It's not really recursion, but it's neat. Chthonian Nightmare is a really cool, repeatable way to recur something from your graveyard. It's always small stuff, however, most of the stuff that you want to recur is pretty small. We have Alesha, who gets bigger and bigger, so we get to attack with her. She has first strike, so she's pretty safe to attack with. And at the beginning of your end step, you get to return a creature card with mana value less than or equal to her power to the battlefield, which once again is like 3, then 4, then 5. So she can just bring back a lot of our threats that the board spends so much time removing. And then Marin, who is just an amazing card. Every time something dies, you get experience counters, and then at your end step, you get to either, if you don't have enough experience counters, so you need more than the mana value of what you're casting, you get to bring it back to your hand. But if you have more experience counters, you get to put on the battlefield. She's such an insane value piece. And then, like I said, with Funeral Room Awakening Hall, you just play Funeral Room early. It's a nice way to deal damage, and then in late game, you get to just bring all your stuff back and probably have a big blowout turn. It's really nice. So, moving on, we have a Song of Totenaz. So we get to just make a bunch of tokens and get to swing. Pretty nice stuff. Artifact mutation, removal, and then also makes tokens. Uh, Titanfall Summoner, you get to have a nice mana sink. So whenever you attack with her and a Prossh, you can just pay all of your mana and then make a bunch of tokens, and then Prossh can then eat those tokens, and then you get a really big Prossh that can potentially one-shot. I have one-shot people in this deck. Um, Chatterfang, like I said, doubles our tokens. You get to make whatever tokens you were going to make and a squirrel. So it goes infinite really easy, and then you can use it as removal over and over again. Chatterfang is a really insane card. Crowded Crypt, I already talked about. Tooth and Claw is a really neat card. You can sacrifice 2 creatures and put a 3/1 red beast. So this also is a combo piece with Chatterfang and the doubling season in this deck. You get to sacrifice 2 creatures, and then you make a 3/1 beast, and then you get to make either another 3/1 beast with doubling season, or you get to make a squirrel with Chatterfang. So Tooth and Claw immediately is a problem if there's any token doubler on the field. But other than that, it's just a nice way to make more tokens and sacrifice more creatures. I like ways of being able to sacrifice Prossh in this deck. It's probably the most important thing to do. Death Tyrant. So whenever an attacking creature you control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, you get to make a 2/2 zombie. So whenever this is in play, you just swing with your Prossh and your kobolds. You sacrifice your kobolds to Prossh, and then you get to make 6 of these 2/2 black zombies. Pretty nice stuff. Pretty self-explanatory. Doubling season, make double as many tokens. Pretty simple stuff. Uh, Endrick Saul, Master Breeder. he just makes a bunch of thralls. Whenever you cast Prossh, you get to make 6 thralls, which you can immediately sacrifice. Because whenever you control 7 or more, you have to sacrifice Edric thralls. So you want to make sure that you're getting rid of those thralls before that trigger ever goes on. Because even if you have like 8 of these, this trigger goes on the stack immediately. And then even if you sacrifice them, the trigger's still on the stack. So you need to sacrifice your thralls before you cast more creatures without thinking about it. The Mycolith, he is a late game destroyer. You get to just devour 2, coolest mechanic in the game, by the way. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you make a 1/1 sapling for each counter on him. So the way Devour works is you get to sack you get to sack as many creatures as you want. Put 2 counters for each creature sacrificed, and then every upkeep you get to make a sapling for each counter on the Mycolith. So you're essentially doubling your tokens if this ever makes it to your upkeep. And I find that it doesn't. Typically, this gets removed pretty hastily. However, the times that it does, almost you're always winning because he's a big beater that makes a big token army that you can then sack. He is a really nice finisher in this deck. Tendershoot Dryad. He is just a really nice way to make tokens every turn. You get to sack him, get deal damage, and then the saplings get big when you have the Sitting's Blessing, which guess what? You always will in this deck. You know, Belladros, he makes a back and green pest. Whenever those die, you get to gain life at the beginning of each upkeep. So Belladros is really insane because he gets to, if you're ever falling behind in life, even with your life gain, these tokens themselves give you life. He is a really nice piece. I'll talk about Azuri's Predation when I talk about my board wipes, but this is a really neat card. I'm going to skip over the lands. Nothing here is very interesting. It's just 3 color stuff. Ancient Tombs in here. You can, if you care about your budget, you can just replace most of these with cheaper alternatives. I've run this deck with just swamps, forests, and mountains before, and it works just fine. I will talk about Void Altar. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not even going to try. But it enters tap, and adds black mana, and it has the station ability. When you get 12 or more station counters on it, you can pay 2 mana, 2 life, and sack a creature, and draw cards equal to its power. So notably, if you get Prossh really big, you can then put 12 station counters on it. So you need to cast Prossh and have any other token on the board, and then sack it all to Prossh, and then just tap Prossh to put the station counters on it. And then you can pay 2 mana and then tap this and sacrifice Prossh to draw 12 cards. Really good land. I highly recommend more people play this land if you have the budget and you don't care. And Midgard City of Mako, same boat. You get to sack a creature and then draw cards. And then afterwards, you can just play it as a tapped swamp. So you don't miss your land drop, no matter what. Even if it is a kind of a mediocre land, having a tapped black mana is not super insane. But I like these cards, these adventure lands. So now we want to talk about our removal, because every deck needs removal, of course. So, first of all, we have Artifact Mutation, hits artifacts. We have Infernal Grasp, destroys stuff. We have a Terminate, destroys a creature. Untimely Malfunction can destroy an artifact, or you can protect some piece you need. I really love this card. This is one of my favorite interaction pieces in red. And you can use it so things can't block, because Prossh doesn't have trample, and it's really annoying. I don't typically use it for that effect, but you can if you ever want to just swing out really hard. Chaos Warp, you put a permanent into someone's library and they get a free permanent off the top. Hopefully it doesn't get, hopefully it's not bad for you. Gluttonous Hellkite does work. Everyone has to sack 1 or 2 creatures, and then this thing is huge. Like, and it's a flying trampler. Like this is getting through every single time. Kazu's Fury is another MDFC that for red mana this time, but it's also a fling. So you get to sack a creature and deal damage to someone. When Prossh is 11 power, you get to hit someone for 11, sack Prossh to this, deal another 11 to them. It's a pretty big swing. Mayhem Devil can hit creatures and planeswalkers. So, Druid of Purification. I this is a card that I want to see in more decks because you get to you get to essentially hit four different artifacts or enchantments that you don't control just by politicking. Sure, people can pick the same one all four times if like you're the threat. However, I find that people a lot of times will just want to get rid of problematic stuff, and I'm a personal soul ring hater, and I like that people will blow up soul rings with this. Or if they don't, I can blow up a soul ring and someone else will blow up a doubling season. I love Druid of Purification. It's such a cool card. And then Fell the Profane. So just another MDFC gets removal. You can bolt it in for a black mana, and this just destroys a creature or planeswalker. Nothing crazy. And then I will skip this because I want to go talk about our board wipes now, which we only have three of. So I'll just talk about them real quick. We have Blood Money, which, I kind of mentioned already, but you get to destroy all creatures, and then you make a treasure for each non token. So this can be a quite cost effective board wipe if you can get up to 7 mana, and it's not impossible in this deck. I wouldn't recommend this for the generic deck, but for this one, it's insane. I really like playing this card. We'll talk about Isera's Predation now. So for each creature your opponents control, you get to make a 4/4 green Phyrexian beast, and then all of those beasts fight those creatures. So this just means anything below power 4 or less dies on your opponent's side, and you get a bunch of 4/4 tokens. And it's really cool that they're 4/4s because they can just swing and next turn and they'll do a bunch of damage. However, you can also just sack them and ping the whole table with an Nadir's Nightblade, or you can ping, or they'll trigger a Perforos when they enter and just kill the whole table before they even fight. This is such a gotcha card, and it's really fun whenever you get to play it. I'm not gonna say this is the best thing you could be running. This isn't like the most optimized deck in the world, but I love playing this type of deck in this type of aristocrat type style. And finally, we have Crux of Fate. So you can either choose one to destroy all dragons or destroy all non-dragons. The there is a gluttonous Hellkite, but the reason we're running this is because Prossh is a dragon. You just cast this, you can destroy every creature that's not Prossh, or if you're against the Dragon player and they're the problem, you just destroy all dragons and then have the whole table, you know, hopefully the table doesn't beat on you for that. um, but yeah, that is my Prossh deck. This is the first deck that I've ever built. My name is Nightingale8077 on Moxfield. If you ever want to look at my other decks, I'll be talking about more of my decks, I think. I just wanted to make this video and just try. It's not going to be the best video because this is my first one ever, but I wanted to share this deck because I love this commander. This is my commander I've been working on for maybe like 4 years or so now. So I really enjoyed playing it. But thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you'd like. And I will see you later.